back there.
Well, was he recording our conversations?
No,
Probably.
but now he is. Now we're ready.
We'll see him on YouTube.
Ready? All right. Oregon City Library Board meeting will come to order. In attendance, Don Wright, Ken Hall, D.A. Hildebrandt, and Scott Edwards. Everyone's been given the minutes from the last meeting. Are there any corrections?
Oh, I put it on your desk. Didn't you?
I move they be approved as presented.
Yeah.
I'll
it's
second
on the
that.
seat of my car.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Could you run that by us again? Who
I move
you moved?
that the minutes of the last meeting be approved as presented.
Right.
Yeah.
At least have an agenda.
Okay, that's good. Oh, I can go online and get it.
And seconded.
I seconded it.
Thank you. We were discussing where Denise's copies of everything were.
Still in my car. Sorry.
All right, minutes approved. Next item of business, public comments. All right, then we'll move along to my favorite part of every library board meeting, the library director's report.
All right, excellent. Well, before we get started, let's welcome DA back and give him a
Oh,
present that
yes.
he wasn't here to receive.
What's that?
We'll find out. Open it up and find out.
Jeez. Oh, cool. Look at that. It's a piece of the maple from the
Yep.
old tree
Cool.
that we cut
Very
down.
nice.
Wow, look at that for the screen.
Isn't it beautiful?
Yeah. Now, who made this?
You would have to ask her name.
CS, maybe?
Carol, what's her name? I can't remember her last name. But she's an artist who made the plaque for Rocky when he went off the commission. And so we had some of that wood in the works getting sanded and everything. And I just decided, well, I think the board needs some recognition. So I did that for the board who was, there when the library opened. And then I'm working on more wood for the foundation board and the Friends board. And I thought that would be a really nice way for everybody to have just a little piece of,
Something to
memory,
remember.
what they went through.
Are we going to have to chop down another tree? You're
No,
adding a lot of
we
people
have,
We got some more elm.
We have-
I think
That's
we'll
all
have to
right.
review.
we have more of all of the above.
Okay.
Yeah, we're in good shape.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thank you. Thank you. So you don't get, another one because you're on the foundation board. Sorry,
Right.
this is it.
One's fine.
Yeah. Just to make that perfectly clear. So, okay, so the report for March was amazing. We had a banner month. We had 36,822 people pass our thresholds, all three of our thresholds. Yeah,
And that's no construction workers, right?
and that's no construction workers. Well, very few workers, yeah. So I think part of that was spring break. We were a very popular place during spring break, the weekends before and after. But the biggest month before that had been February, which was slightly below 31,000. So that is a huge increase over 31,000. But we've now had, since October, we've now had 3 months that have topped 30,000, which is essentially double of what we used to average, which is pretty amazing, I think. So also in your packet, I thought I put, maybe I did not. So busy making copies of all kinds of different things. Yeah, I did, actually. I created a little comparison sheet for staff because I wanted to show them like how hard they've been working, because they thought they've been working hard and now they know, yeah, we've really been working hard. And it just shows that June as a month and then March as a month. And June was the last month that we were in the Carnegie before we moved over to the
Okay.
addition. So that's why I selected June as just kind of representative. And sure enough, our door count was 15,427, which is like kind of right below our average of like, the previous 12 months. So, March we did 362 new cards as opposed to 220. And those are a lot of work. And we added 1,233 books instead of 99. Yeah. So, I mean, the difference is, and like download, even ebook downloads were like over 3,000 more than June, which you wouldn't think that would, because it's, you know, it's digital. Like, what's the difference? But now people have like a bigger building, they kind of hear more, there's more people involved, and the more people are just doing more stuff. So, the interesting thing is if you look at the circulation of just regular items, you will see like the adult in June was 18,446, and it's only up a little bit above 21,000. The teen was at 1,452, and it's only 100 more. And the children's is about 4,500 more than it was. So, you know, there is higher circulation, but the circulation is not keeping a pace of the foot traffic. And the foot traffic, we think, is so high because people are coming in and just using the facilities that we have for all those things we'd never had before. Like, we had collections before and we had access to the Link collections before, but now we have meeting rooms and programs and places to sit where they can just, people can just use their laptops and all that kind of stuff that we just did not have before. So that's where I think we're seeing the real difference in usage. It's interesting because people want an amazing collection and they browse the amazing collection and they still use it, but not like they're just using the space.
Are our magazines part of the circulation count?
Our magazines do not get counted, do they?
They do.
They do?
Yeah.
Okay.
They'll be in with the adults.
With the, okay, I'll have to look
Okay.
at that more closely. All right.
And then, you're getting much in the way of use of...
Hold on just a
Oh,
second.
okay.
They get counted if they get checked out.
If they get checked out,
But
not
if they
they're
get
sitting
browsed,
reading.
no.
Yeah, okay, that's
Yeah,
what
no,
I guess that's where I was
browsing,
leading, yeah.
yeah.
Because I went in there to read the Oregonian the other day, and there were 2 other people waiting for it. You know, so, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and we have people who come in every single day, and they'll read, you know, the Wall Street Journal, and we have actually started getting the New York Times, and we're going to start getting Fortune and Forbes, because we have this one guy who's just, here's your whole business lineup. If you could just get this, and I'm like, why not? Let's try New York Times for a year. Let's get it and see if it gets used, you know? We know he'll read it. So that stuff never shows up.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Can I
good
get the
question.
crossword?
Huh?
Can I get the crossword from the Times?
Yeah, if you copy it.
Okay.
Please don't rip it out of the paper. Yeah.
Bring a razor.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, no. DA, be a good influence, not a bad influence. You had a comment and I interrupted you.
Oh, I was just interested about the community room
Uh-huh.
getting used. Is it, how's it being scheduled? A lot or a little?
Well, a lot. I mean, all the conference rooms are being used a lot. So, for instance, today was kind of a typical day. We had story time at 10:15. There's just one story time on Wednesday. It's the bilingual story time. And then we had art lab in the afternoon that starts at 3:30. That brings in like, I don't know, 40 to 70 people.
Sometimes up to 100.
Every week. And then upstairs we had the Friends of the Library Board meeting at 3 in the conference room, and the everything room, the small room. I wish we had more of those. That size is perfect. That was booked at like 11, 3, and 5:30 or something, like 11, 1, 3, and 5:30. There were
Wow.
books.
Those seats never get
reservations for
cold
that.
then.
Huh?
Those seats never get cold then.
Not hardly. Not hardly.
It's cool.
So I mean, it just depends on the day, and then sometimes we'll have the night meetings, or we'll have, you know, programs. The weekend, like on Saturdays, we're starting to have more programs on Saturdays. So, like last weekend, we had Lego Lab, and then we had an Oregon Humanities Conversation Project about race and privilege, and then we had three indie authors come. And I don't know how many people came to that. Did you ever get a report? No idea. And so there were like, that was just the community room on Saturday. So it's getting a lot of use. It's great.
So it was a worthwhile investment.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I was wondering about the guidelines that we sweated over, for several
Uh-huh.
weeks. Are they working out okay with all of this?
Yeah, everything's working out fine so far. The community room, we are not really letting it be used after hours for independent groups. Like, it's basically supervised by a staff person.
Okay.
The doors and that whole setup is all working great.
Okay.
However, we are really uncomfortable leaving our technology with just anybody. Do you know what I mean?
Totally understand.
Yeah, and it's not exactly the most reliable system at the moment either. So that would also be really bad. If somebody needed to troubleshoot, it's better just to have somebody there for an extra 2 hours than have to deal with all those problems via telephone or whatever. So that's what we're doing for now until we if and when our comfort level is raised around the technology, we'll change that. But our policy covers that eventuality anyway. So right now, we're taking reservations for rooms in person or on phone, not online. Online might work okay. What we're finding is because we don't ask all the right questions, staff doesn't, of people on the phone, we might have people start filling out forms just to make sure we're asking all the right questions. Because if somebody wants technology and we haven't asked them about that, then it can be like kind of a rude awakening when all of a sudden they show up and they need something and we're not ready for it. That kind of thing. So these are like very little, you got to use it for a while before you figure these things out. Get everybody trained.
I was impressed with the self-check June to March
Isn't
thing.
that crazy?
It tripled. From
Yeah.
5,000 to 15,000.
Yeah,
Wow.
I know.
I even used it.
You haven't?
Really?
I even used it.
Oh, awesome. And it worked. Yay. Well, we have one upstairs and we have one in the Carnegie. And I think that helps. So we have 4. And when we do the RFID, we'll have 5 because we'll have one in children's. But I'm very encouraged by that because if people are using it now, when they use the RFID system, it'll be so much easier because they'll just plop their stack down on top of the little pad and it'll be like that.
Magic.
It'll be like magic. It will be so much easier. And I know some people really like to, scan the barcodes and this and that, but if you don't have to do it, it's even better. So I'm really excited about that as we go into RFID. So, speaking of RFID, we have started the process of what's called tagging, and that's the little RFID chips that are embedded into this kind of flat little square thing that just gets stuck on. And Michelle Kraus, one of our former employees, who quit about 8 months ago?
Ago or so.
A year
Yeah,
ago,
right
something
before
like
we
that.
started moving.
She is volunteering for us, which is great because she's really comfortable and familiar with our system. And she's helping us tag the audio-visual collection, which needs to be done down in the staff area because you have to basically take apart the cover of the audiobooks, for instance, and put the tag on the inside of the paper part and then put it all back together again. So it's an easy process. It's just kind of step heavy. So she started that downstairs, and how far do you think she's through?
We're through the G's,
Okay,
at least.
great. And then the rest of the collection mostly will get taken care of by staff and volunteer in the stacks, but Link, the whole system, and Denise could tell you down to the nth detail of this, they've come up with some carts that have all the right equipment on them, and those carts are being kind of used by all of the libraries in succession. So we're on the schedule for
March 12th through 25th for 3 carts.
March?
Or May.
May, thank
Yeah.
you. The other May, the other
The
M
other
month.
March, yeah.
Yep. And so those will come to us, and then we'll get a whole bunch of volunteers in the library at the same time, and we'll just do a row at a time or whatever, and people can just go around us, or we'll block that row off or whatever. We'll figure it out.
You say you need volunteers.
We do.
How does one sign up or?
I think you just did.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's sort of like RFID. You just put the guy on there and he's in.
Well, it's a really easy
Sure.
process. There's not a lot to it. You mostly just have to pay attention. So for some people that could be hard, but
The last time I volunteered to do something technological for a library was in Council Bluffs, Iowa, and I was friends with the librarian. She said she needed some books cataloged. Can you run a computer? I said, yeah, sure. So I went down in the basement of this old Carnegie, built about the same time as this one, dank, dark, whatever, and there was one of these 1980s computers where you had to do like 12 steps and then hit the correct button to enter for each book. It took forever. But this will be easier, right?
Oh, this is like one
Oh.
step.
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
no,
it's-
this is way easier.
Way easy.
This is why people in the beginning were kind of like, why do you say that computers make life easier? Because it didn't for a
Yeah.
long time, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I remember those.
Yep.
I didn't know you knew how to catalog. We could put that to good use.
I did. That was a long
Yeah,
time ago.
That's nice. So RFID is chugging along. I was going to make the suggestion. We had talked about doing strategic planning, which needs to be done because our strategic plan is only good through 2018. And I would like to make the suggestion. This is strategic planning for results. And this is like kind of the librarian's Bible of how to do it. And last time we came up with the strategic plan, I started using this and then I thought, oh hell, this is going to take way too long. We need a strategic plan. I just want to like get one done. So I just did kind of a quick and dirty version. But this time, I think we really need to get the community involved and do it right. So I was going to propose two things. That we wait until after RFID gets done. And I might even ask to wait until after we get the automated materials handler installed so that, we could just be done with that whole project. And then have maybe a small subcommittee that could sit down with me and talk about the parts of strategic planning and how to kind of maybe suggest going forth with this. And maybe one person from the library board and maybe one person from somewhere else and maybe one person from staff, just a small subcommittee just to help me move this forward the way it should be moved forward so that we may not be starting it much before 2018, but we'd get it done before we run out of our other one. Because I don't think there's a huge rush, but I think it would be great to finish up some of what we've got going on before we rush into what really should be a good process and can be a very motivating and inspiring process for the community, I think, if it's done properly. But otherwise, and we want that community input because now that we have the library, we really want to be sure that we're doing what the community wants in the library. So I know this puts it down the road a bit, but what do you think? And we don't have to decide tonight. We can talk about it next month or whatever, too.
I think if we had the full board here, that'd be a good time to talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's an
I do
interesting,
think you're
interesting
right,
proposal.
though.
Think I'm
Yeah,
okay.
because if we jump into it just as some of these other services are coming alive, people are going to be focused on, we need RFID and we need the things that are coming, and they won't really be focusing on what it is that we want to do in the future.
Yeah, and then I think it would be good to kind of see how RFID changes things a little bit too, to have a little bit more experience, some experience with that in the mix, to see how that impacts staffing and that kind of thing, so that we, from the library side, know a little bit more about what we're talking about. And I mean, we need to do this process, but we're still learning out how to use the building and stuff. Our first year is going to be a first year. We have a lot to learn yet, so I think there's no rush, and if you guys don't mind at least slowing it down a little bit. So let's talk about, we'll keep it on the agenda for next month, when hopefully we'll have everybody else here too, and we can get their thoughts on it. Okay, that sounds good. And then, speaking of, did I send you the list that I gave to the foundation and the Friends joint meeting?
Yes.
Because I have that in front of me here as well. And this could factor into that conversation, but this is more like immediate. Some of it is more immediate that I'm going to move ahead with. And maybe we can just talk about that real briefly.
Oh, we already have it.
And then you kind of know, okay, so she's not slacking off. She's really going to be working this year, even if she's not working on the strategic planning. So we are going to, for sure, continue working on our collections and our pre-processing. And we've just about made the decision to add Ancestry.com, which can only be viewed in-house at the library, by the way. That's just the way they package it for libraries. So I'm in discussions with Ingram, which is our main book vendor, about an opening day collection that's not for opening day. So an opening day collection is the kind of idea where you spend a bunch of money and you've got like beautiful new books on your shelves for when you open a new library or whatever. That's the concept. We had it in our budget and then we took it out of our budget because our budget was just kind of like, I really wanted to focus on the building. And really early on in the process, I just didn't know where we would land. So I took it out of the budget. And I also didn't know like how much we were going to be getting out of storage, how much we weren't, you know, all that whole process with that stuff. Now we know where we are. And so I can work with Ingram. They can look at our collection and then they can like make suggestions for places to fill in, authors we don't have, subject areas, and it would save my staff like a whole bunch of time. So, yeah. And then the pre-processing concept is we're going to do this regardless of whether I'm going to move forward with this kind of collection to fill in. But the pre-processing is where at Ingram, after you order your book, they send it to their department that puts on the labels, comes up with the call number, does all that stuff for you. So that when you get it to the library, it's really, you basically check it in, you receive it, and it's virtually shelf ready, depending on how much you have them do and how much you save for yourself. There might be some areas that would just be less confusing if we just kept doing it ourselves, certain labels. Do you know what I mean? So that's what pre-processing looks like. And what it does is when we're ordering more, of course, it will take more staff to process things. If we have somebody else do the processing for less money, it frees up our staff to spend time with patrons, which is where we want them to be spending time. So it gets them out of the back room and more in front of the public, which is exactly what we want.
I don't think anybody even thinks about how much it takes to go from receiving a book to having it shelf ready.
Nobody except us. And believe me, it can be a process sometimes. I mean, there's a whole life cycle to that. You know, what do you select? Why do you select it? You know, we've kind of gone through the collection development policy, and that's included in all there. So, and then you order it, and then you have to get it ready for the shelf, and then it has a life cycle, and then you deselect it. And how do you decide that? So there's a whole life cycle of materials that, in addition to like checking things in and out, you know, somebody has to be dealing with. And so it usually is split up between certain tasks go to certain people. So like the librarians are the people who select and deselect mostly. So yeah, there's a lot of maintenance, I guess you could call it, that happens to that collection. And it's constantly changing. I mean, it's one of the few places I've heard this where somebody takes something away and then it bounces back to you multiple times. You know, those items. Like in a store, it goes out and it stays out. It's gone. And you know what your inventory is. Ours comes back, and depending on the condition and how it gets treated while it's gone, who knows how long it's going to last. You know, there's an average life cycle for a book, but oh my gosh, things get beat up, you know, chewed on and everything else. So anyway, number one, I'm moving forward with number one. Number two, and I'm probably going to talk to the foundation about number one. That was our joint meeting. This is the list that they got, and I'm very focused on asking for help on number one from the foundation. Number two, I really want to talk to the foundation about a laptop cart. And they've been given a specific gift for a 3D printer. So we'll have to move forward with that because the gift has been given and we want to. ADA, with adaptive technology, I think would be really important to start working on as well. And then this other stuff, it can kind of come as it comes. The building, I just contacted the architects today because I want some help with noise reduction. It's too noisy. And I know that there are things that can be done. So I want their help with that. We've like hung like kind of a screen, a fakey screen thing between the hello desk and the children's desk because there just needs to be more separation of space right there because those desks are so close. And so I'm going to get their help to make that a little bit more formal, a little bit more substantial than what we have now. And then now that it's summertime, we are once again having the problem of sun right in the face of the people who are working at the hello desk.
Well,
And I don't know what the solution is to that. I think that will be the trickiest one. But it's a problem. And we'll see where it goes. So I'm going to talk to those guys. And then art, we need art in there. I've got a whole bunch of paintings that could be put up. They're not generally the right thing for the right place though. So I'll put up what I can. But then like in the children's room, if you come into the foyer and then you look towards the big pink wall in the children's room, the signs for the smaller categories are up now, and they're also pink with white lettering, and they just kind of like fade into that wall. Not that you can't see the print on them because the print is white, but it's just like that wall back there is just screaming out for some kind of art. But that can be developed over time, and as I think it should be. And I think I would love to do a project again with the Clackamas County Arts Alliance, a public art project, because I think what we came up with the sculpture and the commas just is amazing. And furthermore, I don't ever want to be in charge of an art project and have somebody mad at me because I didn't pick their favorite artist. Because within about 2 seconds of suggesting something of an art project at the joint meeting, like there are 5 hands up saying, oh, I know an artist, and I'm like, I am not going to be responsible for saying no to your friend. No way. Jose. So, and I think the process of having different community members involved in selecting art, it just turned out so well. I'd love to do it again on a smaller scale, much smaller scale. And then the drop boxes at the site and off-site. I think that's definitely a huge need, and we've talked about that before. And we have got to get through RFID before I consider taking on something like that. You know what I mean? And probably the strategic planning. And that could be maybe part of the strategic planning of like where would be good locations for off-site. Because I know we've talked about that for a long time. And as well as the idea of having like a countertop in a grocery store somewhere. I'm still really like fixated on that idea too. Open from 3 to 7 on 213 and the intersection of Malala. I don't know. I've heard somebody else is going to go into Higgins maybe, so who knows. There's still hope for that site. Because I think that would be like kind of the perfect spot in my mind. Yeah. So anyway, and then the 5 and 6, those are things that the Friends probably would focus on. These are smaller programmatic kind of things that they've been helped. This is the kind of stuff they've given us throughout the years already. And so today we had a meeting with them and we were talking about putting together a bin with CD audiobooks and headphones and CD players. Maybe, and that would be the kind of thing they'd really enjoy putting together with us. And then if I had a staff person who would be visiting these places and bringing those kinds of things around. So that's kind of the list of stuff that's like right out in front of us, in addition to the strategic plan and the RFID and wrapping up building things and getting staffing really well organized. I think that kind of questions.
How often, well, obviously it's daily or more than daily on your Dropbox presently at the library. That has to be cleaned up at least once or twice a day, right?
We do it every hour.
Every hour.
Every hour.
I hadn't thought of that. Okay. So the exterior Dropbox at Malala and something, that would have to be checked pretty much continuously during the day.
Well, I think we could get something that's bigger to start with than what we have here.
Yeah.
And we would probably have volunteers. It's got to be volunteer based. And like twice a day, at least to start with, to see how it goes.
Wow.
Yeah,
It's a big commitment.
it is. It is. But you know, the Friends run a bookstore that's like open 50 hours a week or something. So
Yeah.
if they can do it, we could do this. We could figure it out. I think there'd be people who would prefer to do something like this. And they're doing it in Lake Oswego and Westland and I think Wilsonville maybe?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think you.
Yeah. So we can talk to those guys and see what they do.
Sure.
Haven't you mentioned Beaver Creek before?
Mm-hmm.
Being
Mm-hmm.
a good spot.
Yeah, like potentially up on the hilltop somewhere, Beaver Creek and Holcomb area or whatever, Park Place over there somewhere. You know, like someplace that like people drive by a lot, and then places that are just really inconvenient to get here from. And at least prevent people from having to drive downtown or down here just to like drop off their materials, you know. I think people would look upon that very favorably.
Could people drop off books from any library in Clackamas County? Because I'm just thinking.
Yep, they can.
Okay, because I'm thinking there might be a lot of people from Malala that drive by. They did a 213 and might drop off books they got from that library.
They might. Yeah, we
But-
might find that is like super
Yeah.
busy. Yeah. But we could actually, if we had, a site in a store there, like just a countertop or something, we could actually make that like a different location. So like if you wanted to pick up Holtz there, you actually could do that as well.
That'd be great because I could walk there.
I know, right? I think you'd find a ton of people stopping there and they'd say, well, if I'm here, I might as well just buy what I was going to buy for dinner instead of going over to whatever, you know? So I think it's an idea that's got some merit. So Denise has been training our 7 new on-calls who are just a tremendous group of people. And some of those hours replaced Denise's hours on desk when she got promoted. And then we had like 3 people get full-time jobs. Yeah, I know. So I feel like I'm the minor leagues and they got called up to the major leagues and we got them all trained up and then they got full-time jobs, which was awesome, believe me. I couldn't offer them full-time jobs so they could get them elsewhere, which was great. But then I had to replace those hours. So we hired 7 new people and they're just really good.
They're doing really well.
Yeah.
I'm very happy with them.
And then I'm in the process of rewriting the library assistant 2 job description with HR department. And then once we do that, we'll start the recruitment process for a library assistant 2 for 30 hours a week in the children's department. And then once that's done, one for the same amount of hours for the adult services department. And then next December, our circulation manager is retiring, and then we'll probably replace her with a library assistant 2 of 30 hours a week as well. So I think that's going to add some like permanence, more, permanent staff and some stability and depth to our existing staff. We have a strong staff, but it's just not deep enough, so everybody's working really hard, but everybody, the people who are like the librarians who are making a lot of the selection decisions and stuff like that, they're just a little stressed out as well. So we need to get them some help. So we can do this financially. We've got the money for it. And so that's what we're going to be doing. Volunteer recognition breakfast, April 27th at the library. First time we've had anything like that in gazillion years. So I hope some of you guys can come. That would be lovely. The budget is going to the budget. Well, I don't know that they even have the draft document done yet. But the first meeting of the budget committee is May 1st. And as far as I know, from what we sent over, we're in good shape. Our money from the district is increasing over time at a really nice rate, higher than what they expected. So that's going well.
Do they know why that is?
Well, development,
More
I don't know,
development?
yeah,
More housing?
I guess, yeah. I mean, I would have to ask. I just look at the figures and, you know,
Count them up?
jump up and down, yeah. So it's all really good. We're sending somebody to, a huge, like, the hugest, like, book convention for Spanish materials, like in the world or something. I mean, it's ginormous. It's in Guadalajara every year. And apparently, Spanish materials are really, really hard to buy in the United States, original Spanish materials. So what librarians do is they send people to this convention and you order up stuff while you're there. Well, so the American Library Association has made it really easy to send people because there's these grants that you can apply for and they get reimbursed for most of their expenses. So it ends up costing the library about $300 to send somebody all the way to Mexico. So it's kind of a no-brainer, and it's great experience for the person who goes. So the person who is Brenda, who's been doing our bilingual story time, which is great, because then it's just that much more practice of her Spanish and exposure to children's materials and everything else. So we're trying to grow our Spanish collection, and we can talk about the demographics of the community, but probably when we go over the standards, and we probably don't want to go over the standards until we're an entire group, because it would be silly to review that stuff twice. So I would suggest we put that off for sure. So other than the standards conversation, any questions about what's going on at the library or how we're spending our time and money? And
Have you noticed any vandalism?
mostly the things that we've noticed are people abusing the restrooms. People are disgusting.
Okay.
Take my word for it. And it's very hard to. I'm working with Ann Crandall, our city facilities person, to figure out, like, is there a way? You can't put a camera in a restroom, obviously, that's illegal. But you can have one on the hallway outside, so you can see people coming and going. So we're thinking if we maybe point it more at the door, we could have a better idea of who's coming in and out, and then narrow it down to a time frame, because it appears that it's at the end of the day, because we're hoping people would let us know if there was a mess in a bathroom. You know what I mean? So we're thinking it happens very close to the end of the day, and nobody really does notice it until the custodian comes along at night, and then he's like, oh great. Like, staff doesn't even notice. So we think we need to up the number of times we are checking the bathrooms every day, first of all, and then maybe paying attention to the security cameras, get them pointed in the right area. So it's kind of one of those gross things that otherwise, no, we're not noticing vandalism.
I'm glad I brought it up.
Yeah, I bet you are.
Well, the reason I ask is that we did the city in its kindness just put in all new soft flooring for kids to bounce around on, like you have underneath your stuff there, and new gymnasium stuff, and really did up our little tiny Barclay Hills Park very nice. And I'm sitting there reading yesterday, and I hear crash, bang, and yelling and screaming and swearing, and here are these teenagers out there taking baseball bats to the equipment. Just,
Oh no, you're kidding.
yeah, throwing it and chasing each other and whacking the thing. So I
Wow.
called the cops on them, you know.
Good, great.
And by the time they got there, well, no. But anyhow, that stopped that for a while. But I'm too old. I have a hard time understanding why people do that. So that's why I asked about the library, because here's this beautiful thing, and
Yeah, we have not seen that.
okay,
We haven't had any
No tagging?
knock on wood, no tagging. The only other thing we've had is have you heard of parkour?
yes,
Which is,
yeah,
running and jumping off of buildings and this and that. So we have people who or this one kid in particular was on top of the trash enclosure, jumping off of it because I'm practicing parkour, and like there actually is like a parkour indoor park where you can go do all this stuff, and he's like, I want to get good for the next time when I go to the parkour park, and it's like, okay, no, you do not practice here. And I know where his mother works now, which is next door.
He's dead.
Yeah.
He's dead.
If I see you again, I'm gonna go talk to your mother. Yeah. So, anyway, that's there's skateboarders, there's bikers. When the weather gets better, I think we're gonna see a lot more of that.
And
We were kind of waiting for the explosion to happen in the spring.
when the
where-
fountain opens up and all
when
that.
the spray park opens
Yeah,
up,
spray park.
and like little wet children's bodies are running in and out, and we're like, so what we have noticed, and this is disturbing, is that the toys in the children's area are getting destroyed way faster than we thought, and we think it's pretty much because parents do not supervise their children.
Yeah.
So let me run something by you. This is a good group for this question. What do you think if we turned the children's area into a no cell phone area?
Yes.
Because parents just sit there and they're on their cell phone while their kids are like playing, and their kids are like unsupervised, really. And it's supposed to be an area where the parents are engaging with their children, not just like watching them do stuff or not watching them at all. And, like we're not there to supervise the kids. That's not our job. And the parents aren't doing it. So guess what? Things are getting broken.
What's the age range of the kids?
Of the kids?
Yeah.
Well, we have all ages from, I would say, infants on up, but the infants get more supervision, fortunately. But then once they kind of hit that walking age, I would say, parents are not, like, parents park themselves and then they're like, okay, I'm in the same room with that child. And this isn't true across the board or anything, but like, and they'll just kind of let the child go, And in the meantime, there's other kids racing around. There's like other adults walking around. So, at any one time, you could be knocking over a toddler if you're not careful. And they could be pulling stuff off the shelves and everything else, which is fine to some degree. It's like, we have that little kitchen stuff that we purchased with the coin race money, right? Mm-hmm. So, a couple of the doors got pulled off and, all this stuff is broken. So we just feel like there's a lot of non-supervision, non-engagement going on, which is really not the point of the area.
How do you
How do you do
ban
it?
cell phone use?
Well, you put
when
up
people
signs.
just sit there and do this and don't look up.
Yeah, they don't. I know. I don't know how you enforce it is the thing. I think you can say it, but I don't know how you enforce it.
There may be a technology.
There it is, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking
Oh,
of.
great.
Well, some kind of a buffering system that they don't work in there. They're useless. You can bring it in, but it's not going to work for you.
Yeah.
Is there such a
Yeah.
thing?
Yep.
Yeah, they have them in casinos.
Really?
Kills a cell phone in an area.
Yeah, that
Is
would
that
be.
what you were going to say, Ken?
No, I was wondering about. I have not been in the children's area to inspect things or anything like that, but I was just wondering about what kind of toys and stuff are in there that are capable of being broken. You have somebody who's maybe making or possibly making wooden things for the little kids to play with that are pretty tough rather than flimsy plastic.
Well, so what got broken, I think, was wooden.
Wood.
I'm not sure.
It's like the fiber, pressed fiber board.
Yeah, so we had this little kitchen set up
Okay.
in there, and the door got yanked off of that. And nothing ever gets put away, even though that's kind of like one of the rules of the place. Like, if you use it, you pick up after yourself. Forget it. That never happens.
Yeah,
Some people don't do that at home.
Yeah.
Well, I know, and that's part of the problem, right?
We spend at the end of the night a good 30 minutes cleaning
I understand
room.
that.
Easy.
When I was working the shop, one of my things was to go down and clean up the children's area, which meant we had to wash all the stuff to disinfect it and then put it away. And it got busted and trashed back in those days too. I don't think it was cell phones. I think it was just nasty kids. So.
Well, and parents who are like not saying no,
Right.
or, you know, and I don't know.
Well,
So I don't know if there's a solution.
to little with kids, everything's a science experiment anyway. They're learning
Sure.
how far things can go. At the door on the little oven. Oh, gee, it broke off. You know, I had some kids.
Well, I mean, we've all had kids. I mean, I have
Yeah.
2 boys, so. Anyway, there doesn't seem to be a lot of care.
No.
I wonder this. If you guys have ideas, I'd like to hear them. So anyway, we have vandalism by 3-year-olds, Don. That's an answer.
Yep. Yep.
You know, and I mean, we constantly have the tension of kind of like, we want people to be comfortable, but we don't necessarily want them to act like they're at home, right? So like today, I walked by somebody who was in his socks, and I just asked him to put on his shoes, and it's like you would think that, you know, most people would wear their shoes in a public building, but apparently not, you know? And so it's that kind of thing. It's like, it's not our job to ask people to have manners. But on the other hand, we are stewards of public money. And we want to be sure that, you know, and it's a new building. We really want it to stay nice. So,
Well, we're just getting started with this, so
I know.
stay tuned. Yeah.
I know. Yeah, anyway. All right. So, the next item under the library director's report is the annual review of the Oregon Library Association standards. And before we started, Scott and I were just having a really brief conversation about how, you know, last year when I gave these to you, I gave them to you in summary form. This year, I gave you the whole standard so you could see every single indicator and how I thought we did yes or no on it, except for one section that I just like didn't answer and I wanted to talk about. And so if we really want to have a conversation about it, I'm not sure that this meeting is like the best way to do it. It might be easier and more fun just to like have more, something that looks more like a work session, like, and just be at the library in the conference room or something where we can be, you know, have some cookies and coffee and sit there for an hour and have that be our only topic and just kind of dive into that a little bit more
That
and
sounds
focus
better.
on that instead of kind of in this like weird little setup here. So, I don't know, I kind of wanted to throw that out. We could do it, you know, some Wednesday night, not one of these nights, or we could even trade a meeting for that if we didn't really think there's business coming up. You know, we could, next month, instead of doing a meeting, we could have a work session and we could just make it at the library and we could do the same. I'd still have to put out notice of a meeting, but it could just be that instead.
I'm up for that.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
And just use the May meeting
May
for
meeting.
that?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think, Ken?
What are the goals of this to even, you know, go through and comply with everything?
Well, I think what's really interesting from your point of view is looking at a document like this, which actually is kind of constantly in revision, and I can tell you more about that. This will tell you what librarians feel is important professionally for libraries to offer to the public and to how they should be organized and all the tasks that fall under them. What levels are important, you know, so there's no reward for doing anything in this state, and this state is very unusual. Every single state has does their standards differently. So in some states, the state library is in charge of the state, and it's actually attached to money. And in some states, the library association is in charge. Here, it's a state association thing. The Public Library Division of the Oregon Library Association oversees this. It has no teeth. There's like, if you don't meet these things, nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to lose money because there's no money attached to it. But what the document does tell you is what librarians feel is important professionally. And so it's helpful to use to kind of like help you actually, before going to a strategic process, planning process, know kind of where we are on some of these things, and then we can decide for our community where we would want to focus our resources. So like, for instance, the section I didn't really fill out talked a lot about diversity. Well, there's not a lot of diversity in Oregon City.
Sure.
So while I don't want to pay lip service to it, while I do want to make sure that my staff has some diversity training, like I've never gotten diversity training the whole time I've been here. That doesn't mean I can't do some in the library. You know, I want to be realistic about the fact that like there's not a lot of diversity to deal with. It's just not the same as other communities. So we can look at that section and understand where it applies to us, and then we can move on to, you know, and keep that in mind and look at it every year, because demographics change, and we should constantly be aware and looking at those demographics as well. So it's a tool and a resource. And what we would like to do is we are trying to, I'll just go into this now, the Public Library Division is revising these again so that so it's laid out more like a technical document, and you know when you have met one of these indicators and one of the standards. Because right now it's kind of like, okay, so I've just checked off 5 boxes out of 10 in one of these areas. Have I met it or not? How do I know that?
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to make it a better tool and have like a better glossary, and like, okay, so like something will say, so you have sufficient adequate funding for blah blah blah, and it's like, what's that mean? Adequate? Don't even use that kind of word, you know? So the document is kind of filled with that kind of stuff that we're taking out or rethinking at the moment. But we're also trying to align it better with the state library, and we do statistics annually for the state library. So a lot of the statistics I provide to you monthly, a lot of those are gathered annually, and they're on record at the state library. And I can look up like last year's, and I can kind of see how I compare to other libraries my size. And we're actually one of the bigger libraries in the state population-wise, which is interesting. And so we're trying to make it so that people would be motivated to use these and review them on an annual basis and report to the state on the state statistics how they did on these. And so that there's at least some tracking mechanism, and we're trying to hold each other accountable and bring up all of us. And then we'd like to work with the state library like to create a certificate or something that, you know, you could put on your front window and say, I am an enhanced library according to the standards, whatever. Because there's probably never going to have money attached to this, because we're just set up differently than a lot of states are.
So you get a gold star. Okay.
Something, yeah, gold star from the state, whatever.
Would the public even notice?
The public might not notice, but
Unless
the
we
library
pub-
board would certainly
Unless
notice.
we publicized it. I mean,
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing you could publicize. You could send out a press release. You could have your newspaper do an article. You could announce it at a city commission meeting. You could have a presentation. I mean, that's the kind of thing, like police, like for instance, go through this whole accreditation process, and they get like accolades out the yin-yang, you know, because they have a process. And I understand why, obviously. But, you know, this is kind of the same thing, only it's not life and death.
Yeah.
But it is important. And it's important for our community to know how we measure up compared to other communities after they have invested so much of their tax dollar in us. So that's kind of what it is. It's like, you've invested in us and look at what we're doing with it. And these are the things that, you know, all of us have decided are important, including our community, because you're involved in the strategic planning
Well,
process.
I always see these things too as a shield against the naysayers out there, who says the library is worthless. Why are we spending the money for that? You got the internet and all this stuff, and this is a way that we show professionalism to our clients, which are 38,000 a month,
Yeah.
marching through our doors. I don't know any other naysayer that can say that they're doing that. Also against the strange business of the district library board. Some of this stuff filters down into that too, doesn't it?
Some of the stats do, yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's a good shield against that kind of stuff, even if it only leads to a gold star. We could have gold star children coming out of our library. You've attended a gold star
There
library.
you go. I mean, that's exactly right. You can use it in ways like that are communication and marketing tools that help you out in the long run, and then people know more about the library. But like, I believe like the standards, the document itself, just as an educational tool for the board, is very helpful, because then you know what I'm thinking about doing in the background. I might not even talk about some of this stuff, but it's like, this is the stuff that's important to the profession of running these libraries. So, and I mean, every profession needs its standards. But meeting them there's not a lot of teeth.
So May, we talk about these.
So, how about if we just have, instead of having a regular meeting, we just do a work session in May?
Yeah.
Okay, I like that idea. That work?
We do have to have 9, right, though, during the
9
year.
what, meetings?
9 meetings,
Yeah, we have a required number of meetings
because we didn't in January.
for the
The
snow.
right? Okay, then we probably won't
Well-
in August, or is it just scheduled meetings, because we have 12 scheduled, technically.
Right, and you know, and we could still make this one a meeting, but what we could say is the only topic on this meeting is the discussion of the public library. And we could just have it in a different location. There's absolutely no requirement that we have it here. There's no requirement that every single meeting be filmed.
Okay.
And we could leave it open to the public. That's absolutely fine. It wouldn't be closed.
All right.
So I think as far as I know, it would be,
Okay.
it'd be easier
Good,
to have that
good.
conversation, but it'd still be a meeting, so.
Okay.
Yeah,
That
good
sounds really
point.
good. I just-
And you've read your bylaws.
Yeah.
I'm impressed. I am so
We've got
impressed.
the right guy in the chair.
Yeah,
there.
right guy in the chair tonight, for sure. All right. Other questions about my stuff? Anything I've said? All right.
Jan and Linda aren't here,
I know,
so I
it's
don't think we have.
slackers.
Yeah, no communications. Any future agenda items?
Well, we talked about May already, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
so.
Any further business?
I got a little comment. I worked a little bit on a map trying to figure out where all the libraries are, how they're spaced out. And of course, everything right down the highway, you know, every community seems to have a library. There are some areas where nobody lives, so you wouldn't want to put a library there, but I was just hoping to get a new Clackamas County road map, and they don't exist.
Oh,
So I think I might end up doing it on an old road map, just something for people to look at, but I would just be kind of interesting maybe to have a little display in the library of a map showing where all the Clackamas County libraries are.
well, we have a flyer. It
Yeah, I've
doesn't
got
have a
the-
map on it?
No, I've got the flyer,
Oh, good, okay.
yeah.
It doesn't,
I
huh?
don't think it does, no.
All right. You're absolutely right that they're just where communities, I mean, we all existed as city libraries
Mm-hmm.
before there was ever a Clackamas County system. And Oregon is a very strange mix of county systems and city systems.
Mhm.
It's a bizarre, very non-uniform mix of systems. Other states, like I said, are not like this. They do the standards differently. They do a lot of things differently. So is pretty much like what could be supported by that community is what happened.
Sure.
And so, would you ever build like libraries as close as West Lynn and Oregon City are? Purposefully? Probably not.
No.
With Gladstone and
Yeah.
Oak Grove. and that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? Probably not. I mean, you'd space them way differently if you were doing a thoughtful county system,
Sure.
But so a map of where everything is, okay, we could
Yeah.
probably do that.
And I'm just curious, I know that when the building was closed, we went to West Lynn and could, pick up stuff and
Mhm.
things. And do you get people from all over from places that are served by other libraries coming in here and using it all the time? And is there any way you keep track of that?
No.
Because I have a feeling this library is going to be the main library in the area. West Lynn is difficult to find any place to park.
Yes, it is, isn't it?
As is Oak Grove, as is
And so
Gladstone.
I'm feeling that this physical library is going to be the big dog in the area. And we have to kind of realize what the case is going to be.
Anecdotally, we hear from people, like a lot of people went to West Lynn while we were for many years. A lot of people have gone to West Lynn from Oregon City. So they're coming back to us, I think. And then we hear people that are, from different libraries saying, oh, we just love it here. Some of those teachers that you toured yesterday.
Are from other libraries, but they said they're going to make us their home library now
Yeah.
because they were so impressed with our building.
Denise did a tour yesterday of some retired teachers
There is actually a map online at
Oh,
Link.
really?
at Link.
At Link.
Okay.
What's it called?
I went to lincc.org.
I can send you the link.
Yeah.
Yeah, will you please do that?
Sure, yeah,
I'm
you
kind
bet.
of curious because
You want to send that to me?
Yeah.
I'm just a new guy on the block, so I don't know what's going on much.
That's a good thing.
Well, it's a really interesting arrangement, Ken. And it took me several years to wrap my little brain around this whole thing.
Okay.
The district and the city funding and, the support groups and,
Which made my brain just kick in. One of the more valuable things I've been involved with, a lot of things in the last, 8 years, but was the tours we took of the other libraries before we started planning
Yeah.
ours,
that was fun,
to
wasn't
see
it?
what other, like McMinnville, how they ground mashed two things together there that didn't work very well, and
Yeah.
some places where it worked very well, and some place where you wonder about the bedfellows they're sleeping with next door, and it's just wow,
Crazy.
Yeah, so I don't know if we ever need to do that again, but sure was fun. Even though if it did get lost, I think I got lost once, didn't I? Yeah, I did.
Just once?
Just once.
Just once?
Yeah, that's fine.
Well, that was kind of fun because, those were, specifically Carnegie libraries that we were looking at who'd gone through a process of adding on to it. And yeah, you can do it well and you can do it poorly, and we did it well. We did it very well. Because there's some other places in the state that I'm just like, as you said, McMinnville, how do you even function in that building? Oh my gosh. Craziest addition I've ever seen. But, as far as touring other libraries, are you suggesting we go on tour again?
I don't know. I was driving through Woodburn today and I got lost. I was going through I think it was Woodburn. But anyhow, they have a merger library
Yeah.
there too, with a new one and an old one. And I don't know if we ever went to that one, but it looks kind of weird.
It
I'm
is kind of
curious
weird.
what libraries in Paris look like.
Huh?
I'm curious what libraries in Paris look like.
Yeah,
We should add that
Let's
to the tour.
go.
Guadalajara. I
did
think that we
tour
should visit the
libraries
libraries
in New Zealand.
Did you?
And unlike Australia, New Zealand has Carnegie libraries.
Is that right?
No kidding. I couldn't find
Wow.
out how many are functional still, but it turns out he was busy handing out money in New Zealand.
Wow.
Same period of time.
Yeah,
Not in Australia.
not in Australia.
So
Interesting.
New Zealand could be on the list. too.
Yeah, I like it.
Well, there you go. Let's go.
Any-
The land of the 9 Mile Cloud.
Is that what New Zealand is?
Yeah, one of my students was going to write his thesis, his semester thesis in creative writing, but he wasn't going to be there for class. But he and his wife were going there for their honeymoon, and so he was going to write the big thing, travelogue about the land of the 9 Mile Cloud. He sold it to me. The land of the 9 Mile Cloud. And he came back, and I said, "How's your paper?" "Oh, great! It's right here. The land of the 9 Mile Cloud." I said, "Yeah, I've been waiting for this." And I read it. It didn't live up to its title. Sorry.
Bad.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Any further business? Since there is no further business, the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, sir.
Great. Thank you so much.